Greetings, my friends. Welcome to the next episode of the Mint Mob Podcast. I'm here in Arizona. Jason here with my buddy Alex across the pond over in Germany. We're going to jump into the crypto markets, run down a little bit of news, and then jump into what's happening with our NFT project, the Goodfellas NFT. So that said, Alex, how you doing, man? How was your weekend?
Hey man, I'm doing great. I'm happy to be here. My weekend was fantastic. A little bit loaded, but great definitely. And yeah, man, we actually have to apologize because we did not drop an episode last week. That was due to some technical issues, time issues. But yeah, great to be back. Great to be here again. We had some fantastic spaces. So if you guys missed us, just go to X and re-listen to these spaces. They will be uploaded here as well. And yeah, man, looking at the crypto markets, it seems like in terms of price action, not too much is happening. So we are not sure if we will go down again, if we will go up again. I feel like everything can happen. We can see like a pump to 65 again. We can see a decrease to 55 again. Everything is possible. But from the news that we read, seems like that it's still like positive all the way. I mean, I'm not sure if these news were legit, but I read that China is about to unban crypto. Not sure about that. Haven't found like some legit source. But we also got some more banks in Europe who started trading Bitcoin, which is definitely good. We see so many big players coming in. Price is still so good, and yeah, where do you see us going in the short term?
I feel like we're just in that sideways phase, that always comes before what Raoul Paul likes to call the banana zone. I think everybody's expecting the banana zone to happen way sooner. But I mean, the truth is it always happens late in the year as you go back and look at the charts, so I mean, it's certainly not a time to be discouraged. Obviously, things are different every year or every cycle, and this cycle's certainly going to hold true to that. We've got an election coming up in the U.S. in November. We're just a couple months away from that. So I think there's a lot of focus on what's going to happen in and around the political situation in the U.S. because the Democratic Party is basically, from a business perspective, is really detrimental to business. And then the Republican Party is seen as being a positive for business. So a lot of small business owners that I know are waiting to see what's going to happen with the election before they start allocating capital to anything. So what I see is a lot of people sitting on the sidelines waiting to see what's going to happen. And, I'm just buying the dips. So when Bitcoin drops into the 50s, like it's sitting at, I think, right at 58 or 59 right now, I just throw $50, $100 at it and keep stacking sats. And I do that every day or two, or sometimes multiple times every day. And I'm just grateful to have the opportunity to continue to buy at these levels because, again, we had the little run up after the halving. I guess, what was it, 4 to 6 weeks after the halving, we had an all-time high of 73 for Bitcoin. Solana went up over 200. Ethereum was back up into the threes. And, then, of course, we had big pullbacks on crazy, unsettling news, whether it was war or, political situations or what have you. But the story still remains the same, and that is that, adoption continues. Like you were saying, I think you said there was a bank in Italy that's going to begin trading or at least doing some business in Bitcoin. That's positive. And, we've got, even Trump as a presidential candidate is talking about the U.S. being the Bitcoin capital of the world. So whatever that means. But at the end of the day, the word is getting out and more people continue to adopt. It's just a matter of time as to when we hit critical mass on crypto adoption. So I think we've got a long way to go before people trust the technologies. But in terms of cycles, I think we're right where we're supposed to be. We're in that sideways motion. And if you go back and check the charts on the halving cycles and what happens post-halving cycles, we generally have the sideways motion. And then it's always at the end of the year that we have a big run up. Sometimes it's November, sometimes it's January, but it's always toward the end of the year, the beginning of the next year that's the case. So, I don't really see any reason to panic. I don't really see anything out of the ordinary aside from, the negative news here and there of what's happening in the broader world. But in the crypto world, adoption continues. So I'm buying those dips, brother. How about you?
Yeah, same here, man. But like, I mean, it always comes down to patience. I see that there is a lot of disbelief in the markets now because people are not patient. They want it to go up immediately. They do not really appreciate the opportunities here to still buy. But imagine if you were, you know, in the morning doing your 5K walk and you would meet a stranger who would actually know you. I don't know from where, but he knows you and he knows that you do a lot of crypto stuff. And he has like a conversation with you and would be asking, like, hey, man, I heard you're doing a lot of crypto. Like, I want to get in as well. And I'm not sure I heard about cycles. I know that there should be a bull run coming up. Like, I'm just not sure if I should buy Bitcoin or Polygon. What would your advice be?
Buy Bitcoin. I mean, like I don't recommend any altcoins for any beginners, and I don't recommend anything for beginners other than education. So, if someone was pushed me into a corner and said, "Hey, do you want me to buy Bitcoin or Polygon?" I'm going to say buy Bitcoin, with the caveat that you need to go do some research. Like, go learn about Bitcoin, go learn about the history, go learn why the chain is valuable, go learn about the physics of energy and how energy creates work and how work results in a reward, just like how it mirrors in the real world. If you're mining gold, you're sort of mining Bitcoin via energy, and there's a cost associated with the creation as opposed to proof of stake, or these other schemes where there's really no energy being expended other than a few computer cycles. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I think that's really all I would say to that person. And, if it's a longer conversation and they're willing to listen, I would give them any answers around the education piece that they needed. But I would certainly encourage them to just, jump online. I would go to hope.com, Michael Saylor's website, and start consuming all those videos. I think there's something like 100 hours of videos or more on that website that basically breaks down how it works. Get an education, do your due diligence in terms of learning how it works, and then, sign up with your favorite exchange and start, picking up a few sats here and there.
But does that mean that you actually think that there is a chance that we will not see like a solid altcoin season anymore?
Altcoin season. Um, I mean, I have some opinions on altcoins in general, and altcoin season, I'm not sure it even exists. So maybe give me a little bit of information around what you consider altcoin season. Like, what does that represent to you?
Well, it's been said that looking at the past cycles, that whenever Bitcoin has a huge run, and like people, even big players, tend to see some better opportunities of getting some profits by buying altcoins, and you see the Bitcoin dominance decreasing. That this is basically the point when the altcoin season starts, and back then we had probably like 2 or 3 weeks when altcoins went crazy and generated profits like, I don't know, 20, 25x sometimes. Um, and if you meet someone and he's willing to invest like, let's say, 5 grand, um, and looking at Bitcoin, and he's like, okay, maybe it's going to 200K, like giving me a solid 4x. But if I choose Polygon, which has been at, I don't know, $3, I'm not sure what the all-time high was, but like like believing in the cycles, giving me a profit of 10 to 15, maybe 20x, that would be like from a rational standpoint, that would probably be the better choice, right?
No, definitely not. And this is one of those things that people don't really understand. When you're talking about investing, there's a difference between investing and speculating. What people are doing when you buy a token, you're speculating. You're not really investing anything. An investor looks at a deal or looks at an opportunity and will notice that there's a way that they can get out of that deal or out of that opportunity in many different ways. So, for example, if you buy a stock and that stock cash flows, I don't know, say it pays a 5% dividend or a 6% dividend. Okay, well, there's a couple different ways you can get paid. When you buy the stock, you're going to earn a dividend, which is going to minimize your downside risk a little bit. You have the chance for appreciation. You can also buy puts or calls against it. And so you can leverage that one investment or that one opportunity a bunch of different ways to ensure that your downside is limited and that your upside is more likely. When you're buying Bitcoin or Polygon or Ethereum, all you're doing is you're hoping that the price goes up, right? And hopium is not a strategy. It's not a drug. It's not anything, that you can actually rely on other than market sentiment. So if you're an investor, you're not calling what you're doing in crypto an investment just yet, because again, you only have one way to win. And that one way to win is you sell to a bigger sucker somewhere down the line, right? And so when I look at Polygon versus Bitcoin, for example, I think Polygon's market cap is 4.2 billion versus Bitcoin's market cap of 1.16 trillion. I mean, there's really no competition there in terms of which one of those is going to be more stable or desirable. So while Polygon might offer me the potential for a 200x or a 20x or a 30x return, the chances of that happening are extremely low versus something like Bitcoin, which averages, I think, a 67 to 70% return per year since its inception. So which do you really want if you're just getting into the market? Do you want to gamble on a 20x and hope for the best? Or do you want to guarantee yourself a 70% gain per annum? Well, if you're the average person, you need to go with the 70% because that's more likely to happen than this 20x, 25x thing that you're thinking on a smaller token. So if you just think of it in terms of, it's what is it? Buffett says, like, the first rule of money is don't lose your money, something like that. I forget exactly how it's worded, but rule number one is don't lose your money. And rule number two is don't forget rule number one, So like if you gamble on Polygon, the chances of you losing your money are much greater than if you gamble on something like Bitcoin. And that's one of those things that's hard for people to grasp.
Okay, let me just clarify. So you think like investing in Polygon results in an extremely low chance of getting profits?
Much lower chance, yeah. That's a much lower chance.
But don't you like the explanation you just gave me for like investing in Bitcoin? If you probably asked someone from the traditional markets and asked for his advice and ask him like, hey, should I invest in stocks or in Bitcoin? He would probably give the same explanation against Bitcoin.
Absolutely.
And now you're obviously going to say, yeah, but we have like the big players, we got the ETFs and everything. Maybe Polygon was like a bad choice. Let's stick with Solana, for example, which is obviously going to get an ETF as well. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, it would be the same answer. I mean, Solana has been extremely volatile, and it has, and you have to realize when you look at these secondary, tertiary tokens, whatever they are, when you look at how they cycle, it's all dependent on what Bitcoin does, right? So outside of the Bitcoin cycle, these tokens do nothing. They do almost nothing unless there's, some hype around a particular thing that's temporary and short-lived, and you happen to play that particular short-term hype cycle properly, you're going to lose. So it doesn't make sense for me to buy the thing that is dependent on a Bitcoin run-up. It makes more sense for me to buy the thing that produces the run-up in the first place. It's the difference between buying a stock in an oil company and buying oil, right? So I can go into the commodities market and I can just buy a barrel of oil and sit on it, or I can go into the stock market and I can buy ExxonMobil, right, and hope that the price of oil goes up and that ExxonMobil, with all of its management tiers and strategies and distribution schemes, isn't interrupted with war or politics or tariffs or any of the rest of it, right? You're much better off just owning the underlying asset. So it's similar to this, like because all these tokens are dependent on a Bitcoin run-up, I would rather just own the underlying thing that causes the run-up in the first place.
Okay, so you I think you mentioned it publicly already. So I know that you bought 500 Solana back then when it was around $10, I think.
Yep.
And I like just a wild guess, but I think that this was probably like in terms of like the multiplier, the biggest gain you got so far. So did you consider the chances of that happening to be like extremely low?
I never considered the chances of, like a 20x or a 15x, which is what those would be at today. I think what is Solana trading at 140, so it'd be like a 14x. I never considered that as a possibility. What I was looking at when I bought Solana at 8, 9, and 10 and 14 or whatever it was I was buying it at, what I was looking at it was like the closer it went to zero, the less likely it was to go to zero. And so when I'm looking at Solana at 250 or whatever it got up to, 265 versus Solana at $8, knowing that adoption is coming and that there's a good team behind creating the technology and expanding the technology, the risk at $8 or $10 was almost zero, because I could promise you that it was going to go up at least 10%, right? So like if I threw, let's say, all right, so let's say I bought at 10, which I bought some at 8, but just for the sake of numbers, let's say I bought 500 at 10, that would be $5,000. So if I put $5,000 to risk on Solana at $10 and it goes to $14, then I could always just sell for a 40% gain right there. The chances of it dropping further without a complete failure of the system were very, very small. The chances that it would go up double digits were pretty good at that point, and that's why the saying is, you want to buy when there's blood in the streets, even if it's your own, right? And so that's all I did. Was FTX was crumbling, and that's going to be a temporary news cycle like they always are. Is the technology going to be around even though FTX crumbled? Yeah, absolutely. FTX had nothing to do with Solana. So at the end of the day, I bought, and of course the token came back and ended up making like, I don't know, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 on that one trade, right? But that's because I held it for 2 years, right? So my time horizon is forever. I'm not trying to trade it tomorrow. But if I wanted to get out of the position because I thought the position was, going to kill me, then I could have gotten out for a small gain, even if it was 10%, 12%.
Yeah, man, but you did 20x. So welcome to the magic of crypto.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
But
I
I did
mean,
20x
everything is
with the
possible.
understanding that I might lose that 5,000. Right? Like I did 20x thinking that, you know what, this 5,000 might go away. Like I might never see this money again.
Yeah, but I feel like you never know the risk beforehand, obviously. So the question is, was it like as risky as you say now that like Solana has been at 250 at its all-time high, so it went down. Like the reason why it went down was basically not because of the tech behind it, but just because of the FTX crash. So
Mm-hmm.
I felt like it was definitely a very good idea because if there was a pretty high chance actually that it would get back, and in case of losing that amount of money compared to the possibility of profit that you could make, that was definitely the right decision. And I feel like I do not share your opinion 100% like on altcoins, but I just wanted to ask because I just got to know someone who actually sold all his Bitcoin and ETH holdings back in January, went all into altcoins, and was like the happiest person on earth in March, when it went up so big. And now everything went down almost like 80%, and now he's like in disbelief. And that's it's crazy, man. And I feel like if you want to be sure, if you want to be safe, then definitely go with Bitcoin with the major amount that you're willing to invest. But having a little money invested in altcoins here and there is definitely, in my opinion, a good choice as well.
Oh, I agree with you 100%. I mean, if you're paying attention to the markets and you want, if you want to put money at risk that you can lose, then by all means, throw them at an altcoin. I mean, like if you go and you look at the charts for Solana or, pick one. XRP, Shiba, Polkadot, you said Polygon earlier. Like, go look at the charts. Like, they've not even come close to their previous all-time highs. Never even come close. Bitcoin, however, continues to surpass its all-time highs. So if I throw something at a token like Sol, for example, I'm banking on the fact that the further the price comes down, the closer the price gets to zero, the less risk I have, so long as the technology is viable and adoption continues, right? So the story I look at is, okay, is Solana adoption continuing? And the answer is yes, it is. It's continuing to grow. So if Solana drops to $8 or $5 or even $2, I'm going to buy it because the story is only getting stronger. So that when market sentiment shifts, now you have market sentiment working for you and you have a strong story. That's what brings the price up. It's future value. It's projected future value, right? So for me, buying Solana at 8 wasn't very risky because, like I said, I knew it would at least bounce to 10 and I could get out at 10 if I wanted to, or get out at 14. And those are big gains. Like, again, we're in the traditional market, if you make 8% a year, you're doing good, right? If I can make 40% or 50 or 60% in a week or two on Solana, then I'm not complaining. That's a great return. But by the same token, no pun intended, by the same token, if Solana went to zero and the technology crashed and the team dissolved and Solana decides to go away, then, I'm not going to be too surprised. And I'm not going to cry because I put that money at risk, because I put it at risk with the understanding that was a possibility. So your question to me was, what would I tell the average person, not someone who's paying attention? The average person does not need to fuck around in tokens. The average person needs to go learn and buy something at least a little bit more stable. And then when they start to get their arms around the market and how it moves, they can make some of these plays with Solana or Polygon or, pick one, Algorand, which I bought a bunch of Algorand way back in the day. Stuff like that. But again, it's situation dependent, and every person's going to be different. And that's why it's so difficult to, say, well, what would you tell this person? Well, I don't really know that person's situation. Like, how much money can they afford to lose? If they've got $10,000 to invest, are they going to not be able to pay the bills if they lose $2,000 of it? Well, if they can't lose $2,000, then I sure as hell don't want them putting $2,000 in an altcoin. I want them putting it in something more stable, if that makes any sense.
You just said that the tech behind Solana was also a reason why you felt like it's most likely not going to zero. But if you talk to such person, doesn't really matter if he's into crypto or not, but do you think it makes, let's take Shiba, for example, which is obviously like the biggest and most famous meme coin. Would you say it makes any difference if you invest in Shiba or any other coin that actually has a utility?
Yeah, I think it makes a difference because it changes the story. Remember, when we're buying and selling stuff, all we're doing is we're buying and selling the story. So what's the story behind Shiba Inu? And why is it the biggest meme coin, right? It has an interesting story. It has a history of where they gave a bunch of tokens to Vitalik, and then he either sold them or burned them and then donated a bunch of money to charity. And this created a bunch of publicity, and people were buying 1 million Shiba Inu because they felt rich because they had 1 million tokens in their wallet and it was actually trading on real exchanges. So there's this massive story behind it. What you could do on top of Shiba Inu outside of that, it's pretty much, if I remember correctly, it's an EVM, so it's a Ethereum-based token. Don't really know. You could certainly build on it like other people are building on Ethereum, but what separates it from Polygon, which also lives on top of an EVM, or any of the other EVM tokens? What separates them? There's really not a lot of separation. It's just a story. So I think it matters in terms of, longevity. Like if I'm looking at Shiba Inu versus Polygon, for example, at least Polygon has a pretty dedicated NFT community. I know that much. I'm not sure if it's the same on Shiba, I know they have some NFTs, but are they the same? Is the interest the same? I don't think so. So maybe I look at that. I don't know.
But but did you but like back then did you choose Solana because you were like already kind of involved in NFTs on that chain? Like, if you were like somehow got into like I don't know Cardano NFTs back then, would you have bought like Cardano as well?
Okay, so this is a great question, and I can answer it. Like I honestly had no knowledge of where the token would go. I'm just playing probabilities, and to be honest, Solana wasn't the only token I bought. I bought other altcoins as well, and many of them did well, and others didn't do so well. So it just so happened that my understanding and my exposure to Solana gave me a greater insight as to what might happen there because I was in the Solana NFT market and following the technology a little bit and following the community a little bit. So I felt comfortable gambling more money on Solana than on some of the other alt tokens. So, I mean, you absolutely want to put money in things that you understand and know. And that's certainly one of the key principles to investing in anything. Whether you're speculating or investing, you want to understand the thing that you're buying. So that definitely abated some fears, and that's why I didn't throw as much money at Shiba, which I own some Shiba, or Polkadot, which I own some Polkadot, or Polygon, which I own some Polygon, right? But Solana I knew best, and because it had had a great run and a strong community at $8, like there, it was for me, it was a no-brainer to think that I could at least make double-digit returns in a short period of time. And it just so happened that it bounced back hard, and I continued to acquire and hold.
Yeah, that perfectly makes sense. It's interesting when you mentioned the altcoins that you bought. It's funny because every single one that you mentioned, I own as well. Besides Shiba, I do not have any Shiba, but yeah, interesting. Let's see where we go. But let's jump a little bit into NFT world right now. I actually have read a pretty interesting post that I want to talk about and hear your opinion on. But before we do that, have you seen that Utes are gone?
I have not seen that. No. When did this happen?
You have not. Utes are not existing anymore because they have been renamed to fuzzy DeGods.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I saw that. I saw the fuzzy D guides. I thought you meant that somehow the whole thing went away.
I think you would have read that if that happened.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, yeah, I think Frank actually wants to build everything around the term DeGod. So, do you think that's a good idea or?
I think D guides has done a great job with their branding. And, in the same way that we have Goodfellas and we talk about good things and bringing, people a good life, you can do a lot of different things with plays on those words. D guides has done the same thing, with, like, what are some of their stuffs like D Mint, D Fitness. They have all these different little D things, which you can substitute the word the, which is nice in the English language because it sort of points to this fact that there's an alliteration happening there. So I feel like, Fuzzy D Gods is probably better branding, honestly, than Utes. Utes never made any sense to me. I don't like that artwork at all. And I have no interest in owning one other than to maybe trade one. But yeah, I think bringing that artwork under the DGods umbrella officially with a name like that is super important because they've branded so much of their other stuff with that whole DGods name.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree. And I gotta say, I do follow what Frank is doing right now in his DeGod mode.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious to see where it goes. I mean, I have seen NFTs trending lately a lot on X. Like there were so many posts, and people were saying like, "Hey, NFTs are back," and we saw that the eGods and Bored Apes increased in floor prices heavily.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually read a tweet about NFTs that I wanted to talk about, and I just try to summarize it now. So it was basically a comparison between meme coins and NFTs, and it said that some sort of meme coin fatigue is setting in right now as people are obviously tired of getting scammed, also because of web pages like Pump Fun, which is the reason why hundreds of meme coins are flooding the markets weekly. And yeah, more and more people get back to NFTs. And the post said that NFTs mainly have two problems. The first one would be the network size is limited by the number of NFTs because we usually have like 3 to 4K holders on a 10K collection. We are speaking of 10K collections, while meme coins have 100 thousands of holders. And yeah, that kind of leads to the second reason as well, because the higher the price goes, the more people are priced out. Meaning, NFT network growth is counterintuitive, which means basically that whenever you see a meme coin going up and rising in prices, you see people getting FOMO and trying to get in. While when you have an NFT doing the same and you see like, hey, the EGOTS is like heavily pumping, more and more people are not able to buy one. So yeah, that's actually what like basically what the post said. And yeah, what do you think about that?
About people not being able to buy one.
Yeah, like why NFTs never have the potential to grow as much as meme coins.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't agree with that at all. I think that most meme coins are garbage, and at the very least, if you buy a garbage NFT, at the very least, you still have some artwork that you can look at and put on your wall. The whole meme coin thing is funny to me because we talked about this, around the turn of the year when the airdrops started in December for these major exchanges like Wormhole and people like that. And that sort of kicked off meme coin season because everybody thought, okay, well, now I can drop a token. And it was just like people dropping NFT collections like in 2021, everyone was throwing up an NFT collection. Every 5 seconds, there was a new NFT collection going up and people were buying them. Why? Because they were NFTs. And that's where the energy was. And then when that died off and the energy shifted to meme coins, the same thing happened. People were just jumping on the bandwagon, not realizing that the people who are creating these tokens are just ripping them off. And so I didn't really, get too involved in that. I didn't buy a single meme coin. Every airdrop I got, I converted to Solana or Bitcoin or both. And so I didn't really care. Didn't follow it at all. But when we're talking about potentials, NFTs have the potential, I guess you would say, to be much more limited and much more exclusive when they're managed properly than some random meme coin put out by, some, jackass on television or you're in your favorite, football team or movie or television show. And I mean, if you couldn't see that as a cash grab, then you really don't need to be investing. So the potential for the meme coin, like you said, it's got thousands and thousands and thousands of holders, tens of thousands of holders for a meme coin, which basically just means that you have tens of thousands of people who could undercut you at any point in time. So if you want your token to go up and someone got in 10% lower than you did, well, they're going to go into the market and sell their shit before they get dumped on, right? And if you're sitting there holding the bag, watching the numbers change, knowing that there's really no reason for this coin to move at all in any direction, especially up, you're just going to do the same thing. So the meme coins are designed to go to zero. That's their entire purpose. NFTs can also be designed to go to zero when you have shitty teams and unethical founders. But at the very least, you at least get to hold some form of product so you can never be zeroed if you value what you bought in terms of artwork. And that has the potential to create exclusivity and collectivity over time. And so that's how I look at it. So not sure if that's the correct way to look at it or an effective way to look at it, but that's just what comes through my mind when I hear you compare those two things.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that most of the NFT projects are designed to go to zero as well. But I have to agree that, the power of smaller numbers of holders is that it allows people to make deeper bonds with projects. And every now and then I see that people have the idea of like, or trying to create the idea of being able to buy and sell fractions of NFTs. And in the beginning, when I read about that the first time, I was like kind of not sure if that would be good or not, but I probably come to the conclusion that it wouldn't. Obviously, because like people love to show off their NFTs, owning the piece of art. And if you had actually like if you had a fraction, like if you had like 10 pixels of the EGOT number 5521, that would be a whole different thing. That would actually make it a meme coin. And yeah, what do you think about that?
So the question is, does holding a fraction of an NFT qualify as holding a meme coin?
Um, but don't you think that holding a fraction of an NFT like is kind of the opposite of what you want to achieve creating an and or owning an NFT?
I think
Because if
it's.
we say that we are actually looking for collectors of art
Mhm.
and then selling fractions, I'm not sure, man. Because that would make it more of an asset, like an investment of just trying to get profits.
No, I understand what you're saying. In terms of like fractional ownership, I mean, that makes sense to me because, again, like if you have a fraction of an interest in a thing, whether no matter what the asset is, whether it's an apartment complex, a business, or a piece of artwork, there's nothing wrong with fractional ownership. I don't really think that dilutes the market. In fact, it might open the market to more buyers, which I think is the point. When you have like a really expensive NFT, if you fractionalize ownership of it, then you can bring more buyers in and allow them to participate in the market. And that's possibly a good thing. It also opens up the door for what does it mean to actually trade in a piece of art, because unless you can get everyone, unless you can buy everyone's fraction, then you could technically never own that piece of artwork, right? Depending on how the legality is structured. So I guess it would depend on how it's structured from a document standpoint. Does one person maintain IP rights or own that piece of artwork and you just have a fractional interest in what happens when they sell it? Or do you actually own a fraction of the IP? I think that changes the conversation completely.
But how do you think that could work out, like owning a fraction of the IP?
Well, if you own a fraction of the IP, then you would basically participate in any revenue stream that was generated from using that IP. So let's say, for example, you and I wrote a song, right? And its song became popular. And you and I both had 50% of the publishing piece. Because we own the IP, we get paid 50% of the royalties. But if there were 100 of us who were all publishing that same song, then everyone would get a fraction of that revenue stream. So maybe 1/100th of whatever it generated, right? And so
Yeah,
that would only be
totally. But
available.
let's stick to art, please, because it totally makes sense on different assets. But let's stick to art.
Yeah, but we are. I mean, I'm just using music because it's easy. But art is the same way. So, I mean, Masterworks has been doing this, right? And if you have a company, for example, that owns a $2 million piece of art, then technically the members of that company have a fractional interest in the ownership of that piece of artwork. It's just through the shell of a company. So like if they sell the artwork and they profit $1 million on a Monet, let's say they sell a Monet, they buy a Monet for $1 million and they sell a Monet for $2 million. Okay, well, there's a profit of $1 million that flows through that company, that gallery, and everyone who has a stake in that gallery has a fractional ownership interest in that IP. So they would get paid in proportion to that. It's the same thing, just it looks different on paper.
Yeah, okay. I think I got the point now. I mean, if anyone offered me a fraction of the Mona Lisa, I'd definitely take it. But like from where we are today, speaking of NFTs, I think it's still a long way until such a thing would be possible. I mean, if NFTs go there, and that's what we think, that we will like at some point in the future, we will have NFTs being shown like in galleries and everywhere,
Hmm.
and they actually create revenue streams. It would definitely make sense. But looking at collections these days, like I don't think if that like imagine us making a badge and selling fractions and telling people like, hey, it's not a badge of 100 but of 10,000, and you can like buy fractions of these pieces.
Sure.
I'm not sure if that would work out.
Yeah, and I mean, this comes down to who the decision maker is, really, is your question. Because he or she who controls the IP is the decision maker. So if you're selling a fractional interest in a particular work of art or a particular NFT, anything that you can sell a fractional interest in, if you don't own the underlying asset, in the case of art, that would be IP rights. If you don't have IP rights to the underlying asset, then you can't participate in the business side, or at least from a decision maker standpoint. Like you might be able to profit. Let's say, for example, that you and I bought a fractional interest in a Monet and we own 1/100th a piece. Well, the people who control that piece of artwork aren't going to let us make a decision on whether or not that piece of artwork gets sold or not. That's their decision because they own the underlying asset. They're just sharing it with us. They're saying, we're going to give you a stake in what we do, which is a very different thing from having control over whether or not you choose to sell it or not, right? So I might say I have a fractional interest in this Monet painting, but if the gallery decides to sell it for a profit or for a loss based on their, based on good or bad decisions that they make, I have no say in that. But if I have the underlying asset as something that I own and control, or at least if I'm a fractional holder and I can vote, then I can have some sort of say, then it makes a difference. So if I'm just coming along for the ride, which is what I think most fractional interest would be, I don't think a gallery is going to allow its fractional interest in a particular painting to be determined by one random holder on the internet, right? So at the end of the day, I'm just going along for the ride for what the gallery or for the owner, what they decide to do. I don't have a say in it because they own the piece. They own the underlying piece. You still there, bud?
Yeah, I'm still here, but I definitely have connection issues right now.
Oh, no worries.
I Can you hear me?
I can, yeah. It just got really quiet there for 30
Can you
seconds.
hear me?
I was like,
Yeah,
man, that
for
answer
30
must have been
seconds.
really good because he didn't say anything.
Yeah, I just got a fraction of what you said.
Oh, you did? Okay. Well, shit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but it seems to be good. It's good again. I'll definitely re-listen to what you said on the episode. But I think I got the major point, and I feel like it would be a great topic to talk on Spaces to hear like other people's opinion on that.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. I mean, would you want a fractional interest
Definitely.
in a piece of art?
It depends, man. I feel like the NFT market is not there yet, but I see it like coming in the future. I think that would be actually a valid option to own a fraction of a piece. Definitely, yeah.
Hmm. But if you had the opportunity to purchase the whole thing versus a fraction, which would you do?
You mean like yeah? Give me an example like of a collection now. If you mean if I had the chance to buy a fraction of a DE god or to buy it like completely.
Yeah, okay, let's use DGods, right? So DGods, I think last fall they were selling for like 3 ETH, right? They dropped from like 10 or 12 ETH down to like 3 ETH. And so that would have been like maybe $5 or $7,000 because ETH was only like worth $1,500 or something. And so let's say you don't have $7,000 to buy a DGod with, right? Like, would you want to own a fraction of a DGod if you couldn't afford one? Or would you wait until you could afford one and just buy the whole DGod? Which would you prefer?
Yeah, that's actually an interesting question, but I feel like, if I were sure that the EGOTs keep increasing in prices, I'd probably consider buying a fraction, but I would like never rock that image as some kind of profile picture if I'm not owning it completely.
So ultimately, what you're saying, or what I'm hearing you say, is that it's more valuable to own the piece outright than it is to have a fraction. Because if you owned it outright, you would rock it, you would post it, and you'd be like, "This is mine."
Yeah, exactly. Because like you own the full piece and you feel like it's mine. Like I don't have to share it with like tens or thousands of people.
Yeah. So I think the use case for this is, like you said, it's not necessarily inside art, but for example, like if I were going to buy a DeGod, I guess I did buy a few DeGods. If I was going to buy another DeGod, I would want to own it outright. But if there was a Monet at a local gallery that was being tokenized, and there's no way that I could spend $2 million to buy this Monet, and they're offering a fractional interest for say 10 grand, and I can afford that, well, it would be kind of a cool thing to say that, hey, you know what? I own part of a Monet, right? But we're talking about two different status symbols. The status symbol of a DeGod isn't respected in the art world. Nobody gives a shit about DeGods in an art gallery, right? At least not yet. But the status of owning a part of a Monet in high society is a big deal. So you could basically flash that little card when in conversation, be like, "Oh yeah, I own a part of a Monet with a group of other people. We own, our group. We've acquired a Monet, right? And you could
Okay,
have
let,
that."
let me let me just let me just add another layer here. So if you were able to own that fraction of a Monet, but it would not create any sort of revenue stream, would you still do it? So it's like just for prestige?
Yeah, if I had money to burn, sure, why not? Like, I mean, I'm not going to do that because I don't want to waste 10 grand on something that, isn't going to do anything for me. I don't spend time in country clubs, right? So it doesn't really matter to me. But if I were that type of person and I had 10 grand to blow, sure, why not? Why not? Because now I'm in a more exclusive club.
Yeah, definitely. But I feel like it depends also on like, do you like maybe there are some people out there who, oh, I mean, of course, there are some people out there who worship the art and love Monet and would love it like regardless of getting money from it.
Yeah, I mean, think about it this way, right? All of life is a status game when you think about it, right? So why do people who come into Solana NFTs want to own a DeGod? Well, because they're expensive and not everybody has one, right? Or why do people want to own, an OK Bear? Well, they're not as expensive as they were, but they're still fairly expensive. You got to spend like $1,000 to get one, okay? Right? Same thing with any of the more pricey exclusive stuff, the OG stuff, the blue chip stuff. It's harder to acquire and it puts you in a more exclusive club. But if at any point in time, let's say you had 100 garbage NFTs and someone came to you and they're like, "Look, I'll give you this one DeGod for all 100 of your garbage NFTs." You'd be like, "Yeah, let's do the deal." Right? Because the status of owning a DeGod is very different, right? And the same thing is true in the real world. The status of owning a Monet or a fraction of a Monet is something that 99.99999% of the world will never, ever be able to do. So if you could say that, listen, I owned a fraction of a Monet, that's much better than never owning any Monet ever at all. And it gives you something to talk about in those circles. It gives you a little bit of extra status, so, and why do billionaires want to go to Mars? Well, because it's a status symbol and they can, and it separates them from the rest of us people who can't afford to travel to Mars yet. It's one of those things. Why do wealthy people want to drive fancy
Yeah.
cars? It's a status symbol, right? Why do people build mansions? It's a status symbol. They don't need 52 rooms. They don't even use them. It's just, let me show off. Let me have a little bit more status. I've got 8 bathrooms and you've only got 7. I win. you know, it's all status, bro. That's
Yeah, yeah,
that's why people
definitely.
want this
So
stuff.
so it all comes down to the money you have, obviously, and to like what it means to you to own it. I mean, if I could like own a fraction of the Marshall Mathers LP, I would definitely take it. Like no matter if it gets me money or not, it probably would. But just to be able to tell people about it.
That's a perfect example, right? Like when I asked you way back when, I was like, you said something like, "Oh, you'll have to excuse me, my English isn't that great," and I'm like, "Dude, your English is better than most English speakers, you know." And then I was like, "How did you learn how to speak English?" And you're like, "Well, I listened to a lot of Eminem." And I was like, "Seriously, dude?
Yeah.
There's no way you learned English listening to Eminem, right?" And so I still don't believe that's true. But I mean, that is something that was obviously very impactful in your life, right? And if you could own a fraction of that and obviously own some of the publishing of that and get paid on that, then man, talk about not only a status symbol, but now you've got a revenue stream. That's just a double win, right? I was listening
Yeah,
to,
but I feel like the status would be even like would be worth more to me, would be more valuable. Like telling people when they listen to the album, and I could be like, that song Stan, that's actually mine.
Stan. Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's a great tune, right? Like, I mean, he was probably one of the first rappers to actually tell full stories in his songs, and that song, tells a story. It's a great song, but you're exactly right. And see, you wouldn't trade the money for the thing if the thing wasn't more valuable than the money, and that's just true of everything, right? So anytime we make a purchase in our head, we've got a set of scales, and on one side of the scales is the thing, and on the other side of the scales is how much money it's going to cost us. Right. So you just said right there, like, if I could do it, I would. And I would love that. And it would mean more to me than the money. Of course it would. Otherwise, you wouldn't spend the money. And, I was listening to a podcast this morning with Andy Frisella, who owns a massive company. I think it's worth $200 or $300 million. It's a supplement company. And his whole thing is cars, right? Like, he collects cars. And, for him, cars aren't status symbols. They're things that he loves, that he gets a lot of enjoyment out of. He's not buying them to show off. He's buying them because they bring him joy, right? And so that's a different thing. But he wouldn't trade the money for the cars if the cars didn't mean something to him. And I think, it's interesting that we got onto this conversation because this is something that's often forgotten. And, we talk a lot when we're marketing about telling the story. Like, what is the story of our project? Well, our project is, we've got amazing art, and people got fucked over, and here we are coming in to save the day and basically make those wrongs right, get people paid, put good things into the world, and start to rebuild trust. And we started to do that. Like, we started to get a little bit more heat on us because people are realizing, oh, these guys are serious. They've been here for a year or longer, almost 2 years, I guess you'd say, and they're doing good things. And that's cool, right? And so that's ultimately making our project more valuable because of the status that's associated with that story and the people who are helping us get there, right? And people buy from us because they'd rather have the thing and be part of the story than not. And, that's important. It's important that we maintain that. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I feel like a lot of people underestimate the power of that. So, like, some people buy cars to show off. Some people buy NFTs to show off, and other people buy cars because they love them, and other people buy NFTs because they love the art. And those two things are not the same.
Yeah, definitely, man. I couldn't agree more. I'm actually like on your timeline right now because um, I think I saw a post that you did, which was quite interesting, but I cannot find it, man.
Oh yeah, which one?
When you were like I'm not sure what you wrote, but you claimed something that we do, and then someone commented something like, yeah, and how are you doing it, or something like that. I think it
Oh
was
yeah, yeah,
even
yeah. It was Caden.
you remember what I mean? Yeah, it
Yeah.
was Caden, exactly. Yeah, and that was so like refreshing, like someone actually like being interested and like asking questions, like because it's not always about like just making a quick buck and trying to see if a project got hype, but actually trying to see what's behind it. And that's what I loved about him when he was live with us. I'm not sure if you talked to him before that, if you were on a spaces with him. I think you were, but even before that comment, or
Yeah, I heard him speak on another Spaces, and I might have spoken on that Spaces as well. Like I do this thing where I kind of tour the crypto world, and if there's a spaces that's interesting, I'll pop in there and, I'll throw an opinion or two up. But I had heard him speak about him and his son, and how his son has autism, and how his son is big into painting and is creating artwork and building a following. And I thought that was just an amazing thing, right? And so the more that I go from space to space, the more people come to my timeline and they look at what we're doing. And then, if they're curious about something that I post, they'll ask a question. And so he was one of the people who was like, I had posted something like, Goodfellas is bringing value back to the marketplace. Like we genuinely care about holders and we want to make sure that they're taken care of and, blah, 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 that sort of thing. And so his question was, how are you doing that? And I just responded with a step by step. Well, 1, we do this. 2, we do that. 3, we do this. And I was just talking about, granting IP rights, guaranteeing that people don't have to worry about the Discord disappearing tomorrow, guaranteeing that people actually own the piece that they purchase, these types of things. And that just happened to be the same day that we were jumping on the spaces. And so I just popped back over there and I was like, hey, man, we're jumping on spaces. Feel free to pop in and, we can talk in real time, And so he popped by, and that's how that happened. I think even on the spaces, I listened back to the recording. I think I said something like, hang on a second, I'm sending an invite to someone to join the spaces. And that was who I was sending it to.
Okay, yeah, I remember you doing that. Okay, that's great because like he showed up, he was actually willing to speak to us, and yeah, that's like the best thing about spaces, like connecting to people. And whenever someone is joining, I mean, I remember back then when Chaz was basically joining us, and then many people from his timeline actually saw that he was live on Spaces, and they joined as well, and we got to know a lot of artists, and were able to speak to them, which was so fantastic, man. And I think that's what Spaces are great for, to connect to great people.
Yeah, no, 100%. And then, that one guy that was doing all the rhyming, I think he said his name he went by Beanie or something like that. He popped in because
Yeah, I think he said he got a couple of names.
Yeah, and he popped in because Caden popped in, and then another guy popped in because that guy popped in, and that's just the way it works. And I mean, this is just more proof of like how status works, right? It's like, okay, well, if I have respect for Caden, and Caden's in this one space, then I'm going to go see what's happening over there, right? But if he just saw my spaces or our spaces pop up across his timeline, he wouldn't have given it a second thought. But because it was, Mint Mob, Goodfellas, Caden is speaking, he's like, oh shit, well, let me go check that out.
Yeah, man, definitely. So we're almost 1 hour in, so let's definitely speak a little bit about the Goodfellas as well. And the most important topic right now is the Stargaze drop. Some people might have seen that we had a little tweet about it. We showcased a lady again, and I feel like people are definitely excited about it. I see that there are a lot of people from Stargaze as well, who seem to be interested, and I'm looking forward to get a little deeper into that space as well, and to see, like, because from what I've seen, it looks like there are definitely more collectors over there than I expected, and yeah, curious to see how the mint goes. And yeah, you are responsible for the art again. So do you have anything to share yet?
No, not yet. I mean, we talked a little bit off mic about what we wanted to do. I mean, obviously, we committed to go female form. We already have the artwork from a previous drop that we have IP rights to. That was created by Batunios, which some of you guys in the Solana space will know the name. The guy's an incredible artist. And we talked about, potentially getting back with him and doing some updates to the artwork. So I think the first step is just, talking to him and see if we can get those updates from him that we want. And if we can't get them from him, then I'll end up creating them and adding to the collection, kind of like what we've done with the OG men's collection. But yeah, I mean, I'd like to do it very similar to what we've done in the past, where for every 100 we have, ranks. For every 100 we have a 1 of 1, et cetera, et cetera. So maybe we can involve some other artists in getting those 1 of 1s in those pieces, and have at least maybe 2 1 of 1s, a set of ranks, and see how it goes. But ultimately, I think with the collection, in terms of what we were talking about and what we were looking at, is I'd love to see the collection have some updated head traits and hair traits, and go a little bit cuter, a little sexier with it, just to create a little more visual interest and maybe some new outfits as well. So, I mean, those are some of the things that we were talking about off mic, that we're going to get with Betunius on and see if he can, or see if he's interested in hooking us up and participating in that. Otherwise, I'll be jumping on those traits, and we've got basically 1 month until the drop. The drop happens on September 30th, and I think tomorrow, well, depending on when you're listening to this, it's August, what is it? Or 20th, I'm sorry, it's August 19th. So we have exactly a month until the drop. And so between now and then, I want to get all of those issues solved, the artwork sort of nailed down, and then get the pieces generated. And probably what I'll end up doing is generating like 500, 600 images and pulling the best ones. And then, of course, that involves a whole rigmarole of renumbering them and editing every single JSON file, which is always a fun thing to do. And if that doesn't work out, then we'll end up hand creating pieces, which also involves a lot of data work and a lot of graphic work dealing with each layer. But ultimately, what we want to do is maintain the quality standard that we've set with the OGs, which is to make sure that we don't put out anything that's computer generated and looks like crap. Too many times you get these generated collections, these generative collections, and it's almost like people didn't pay attention to the color schemes or what works well. And so if you guys go and just look at our system of batches, you can just go 100 by 100 on Magic Eden and look at each 100, and you can see how we've evolved the collection over time. And I think based on the feedback that I've gotten, the most recent drop, I think it was batch number 7, has been the most well-received one. And on that particular batch of 100, 60 of those pieces were done by hand, which took forever. But it also makes such a difference in how the pieces show up. So at the 10,000 foot level, that's kind of the plan. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I already said on the Discord that we always try to, top the last batch, and we set the bar pretty high last time, and I'm like, it still feels a little different to be on a different chain. I feel like it's like the expectations like towards ourselves are even a little higher. I feel like we want to do good. I feel like we want to like even represent Solana in some way. And yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that. You guys will see a lot of promo for that batch as well, obviously. And yeah, trying to get in touch with Batunos. Let's see. I mean, we've never spoken to that guy personally. I'm not sure if you actually had a call. I'm not sure, or if you just wrote to him. But I mean, we're trying to get in touch. We'll see if he's able to work on some stuff for us. We have no idea how his like schedule is. We know that he's involved in many other projects as well. But yeah, trying to do the best and hoping for the best. And we wouldn't let like the drop happen if we were not satisfied with the art. So yeah, a lot of work to come, and yeah, looking forward, man. Couldn't be more excited.
Definitely. Lots of work, lots of promo to do. We need to update the opt-in form to include a Stargaze wallet address, which I believe is just a Cosmos or Atom address. So we need to make sure that we do that. Actually, maybe not, because Stargaze is its own chain. So we'll have to do some research on that. But for those of you, I know there's a couple people who reached out asking, hey, what wallet do I use? Blah, blah, blah. One of the guys from Cosmos recommended a wallet called Leap, Leap. It's got a little frog icon. So we'll post more information about that as we go. And yeah, we should be ready to rock. We've got just enough time to get some great pieces out. And obviously we're going to create some interesting traits and put our spin on what was done before. And obviously, do everything that we can to honor the artwork and the artist, and to continue to put forth great things and bring good things to life. And that's what it's all about, my friend.
Yeah, definitely, man, definitely. So I think we got a lot of interesting topics today, like talking about the crypto world and whether it's better to buy Bitcoin or Polygon. We got NFT-Fractions, so I feel like that was quite a special episode. Interesting. Yeah, let's wrap it up here. Thank you everyone for listening again. Hope to see you guys on Spaces on Friday, and looking forward to what's coming next. Stargaze will be special, I think, and I'm actually very curious to see the ladies come to life. And yeah,
Absolutely.
this is it, everyone. Thank you for listening, and see you guys next time. Bye bye.
Take care, guys.